These cinematic travel video postcards have been blowing up all over TikTok and Instagram recently, so let me show you the secret to making your next one go viral. As for my camera settings, I usually like to shoot in 4K 24 frames per second with a 180-degree shutter rule. So that's about 1/50 as my shutter speed. And then I'll fix my aperture and ISO accordingly, and with an ND filter, of course. And then along with that, I know many of us love that blurry background shooting at f1.4, f2.8. But one thing that I learned in my experience doing a lot of these video postcards is I find myself shooting at f4 or f5.6 a decent amount, just to be able to get more in focus and also nail my focus as well while using manual focus, which I'll go into a little bit later. Almost 99% of my video postcards are shot on a tripod locked off, so the viewer's eyes are drawn to the movement in the frame rather than the jitteriness or like the movement of the camera. However, sometimes when you do want to get a nice still of whatever scene is in front of you, sometimes there may be no movement. So that's when this is a good time for you yourself to get in front of the camera to add some movement, whether that's just, walking away from the camera, walking across the frame, or just, standing yourself in a third or being symmetrical in the frame, pretending to take a photo of the scene, just to add some more dynamic to the video postcard rather than it just being like a still image. Because at the end of the day, a still image will just ultimately look like a photo rather than like that video postcard aspect that we know it to be. Now, one thing that I've been doing a lot recently when shooting these video postcards is using manual focus over autofocus, because I learned that, or I noticed that with autofocus, it's just going to capture the thing that's closest to the lens, such as us walking across the frame or whatnot, or us walking away. However, with using manual focus, you could focus your lens on the background for say, and then you could use yourself as a foreground element and maybe, kind of get that silhouette shot or get a shot of you walking away from the camera, and then you're out of focus while the background image is sharp, and then that's what will draw the viewer's attention. As for the composure of all of my shots, I usually like to follow these three main rules, or these three main composures. The first one being symmetry. This one's the easiest, obviously, just lining up your frame right in the center and having equal spacing, having enough headroom and equal spacing on left to the right of your subject. Two being the rule of thirds. With the rule of thirds, it's super simple. You can turn on your grid lines on your camera display and place whatever you would like in one of the 3 or 9 quadrants, across the frame. And then finally, the last one being leading lines. And this one may be a little harder for beginners to see, but over time, you could kind of know what to look out for. And with leading lines, it just helps guide the viewer's eyes to what you want to be focused on, or maybe what's the important part of the image, rather than just, placing your subject on some random part of the video, and it kind of gets lost in the chaos of everything else that may be happening in frame. Along for composition, this is also a good time to remember to get wide angles, medium angles, and close-ups of everything that you're recording, because one, it'll give you a lot more flexibility in post to try out different looks and different scenes, but also it helps immerse the viewer in what you are experiencing at the time. And a good rule of thumb that I like to follow on whether I should get a close, medium, or wide is kind of replicating that feeling that you had when you were in the scene physically. So let's say you're walking into a store, or let's say a venue for the first time. Of course, that's going to be a very new experience for you, and you're kind of gauging your eyes everywhere. So that could be a perfect example of a wide angle type of shot. While if you're, let's say, focused on one specific item that you see in a store, that could be the perfect time for a close-up angle, because that really focuses the composition of the still or the viewer's eyes to one specific thing, which is kind of what you were experiencing in the time of that moment. Another thing that I love about these video postcards is that when you're bringing your camera out in public and filming, you don't necessarily need to be talking in front of the camera and being super obnoxious in public, but you could just film all the ambient noises that's around you. Or sometimes if it's too noisy, when in post, you could do sound design, and with sound design, you could add ambient noises such as like, car honking, bells from a bike ringing, birds chirping, some wind noise if you would like, cars passing by, and that just adds a whole nother level to the video that a standard photo still may not have, and just set your video postcards apart from the rest that we see on TikTok and Instagram. Now, another very, very important aspect to these video postcards is color grading. Now, 99%, if not 100% of the time, I'm shooting all of my things on S-Log3 from Sony specifically. So this requires color grading, and with color grading, I just tend to use a LUT from Phantom LUTs, which kind of replicate a ARRI Alexa kind of look. And they also have some filmic ones on there as well, which I'll use for this application because we want that like nice, warm, old, vintagey tone. So with this, I'll usually just slap on a Phantom LUT, and then this next part is kind of what I learned to bring my footage to the next level, and that's using the histogram, or I guess you could say like graph. With this, I usually add a slight S-curve to just add a little bit more punch, add a little bit of highlight and a little bit darker of shadows to, just to get my footage from like that 90%, which LUT got me to, over the top, rather than it's still kind of looking bland and flat. As for the aspect ratio, a lot of us nowadays shoot in 1080 by 1920, which is kind of like the standard, especially with short form being 1920 by 1080 vertical. However, one aspect that can help set your videos apart from the rest is shooting in a 4/3 aspect ratio, and this is actually what the norm was back in like the 1900s, as we still were using those, or not we, but like as people were still using those like boxy or square bricky kind of TVs. And in order to achieve this, you could just change your sequence setting in Premiere Pro into 1440 by 1080, and it'll give you that older, like cinematic, you can say vintage feel into your video postcards that somebody that's just using a standard 1920 by 1080 may not be doing, which can help set your footage apart just that one little bit. With this, you can go out and capture all those cinematic moments in your day-to-day life or when traveling as well, and post it and make it into a nice viral video postcard that you have something really cool to look back on in the future as well. However, if you're looking for that VHS look for your footage specifically and how to get that, feel free to click this video on my page, which will teach you all about that as well. With that, thanks everyone for staying to the end, and I'll catch y'all in next week's video too. Peace.